For prayer, and Mr. Myers will lead us into the pledge. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Honore Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Meyer. Mrs. Barra. Ms. Fletcher-Mickens. Mr. Robinson. Mr. Washington. Mr. Crawford. Mrs. Arso. Ms. Dugas. Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. The agenda will be followed as presented. Well, precious Lord, we thank you once again for this assembly to ask for your continued blessing on this district and all our employees. Please give us the insight to lead with integrity, that the decision we make reflect what is best interest of the students in our system. In making decisions, we ask that you keep us from the pettiness and short-sightedness, and that the decisions we make are for the good of all without self-interest. Dear Lord, grant us humility to always seek your guidance when trying to fulfill our duties to support our students, our faculty, staff, as well as the Assumption Parish community. These respectfully yours in Christ we pray. Amen. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Uso, second by Mr. Washington. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Next, I need a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Robinson. Second by Mr. Duncan. Questions or comment? Hearing none. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next, under reports and recognition, receive administrative personnel reports. Everybody have a copy of that report in their file. View it at your leisure. Next, receive update on implementation of Assumption Parish School District strategic plan, lesson plan, internalization, and accelerate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just would like to keep the board informed. Our strategic plan is a working document. So what we have in our strategic plan is not something that we just put on paper. This is something that we live in every day. And I just wanted Mrs. Allen to give the board an update of where we are in the process as it relates to our first initiative that we are working with our teachers and our schools. And I also want to thank, before she speaks, I want to thank our teachers, because we have several teachers here this afternoon who will share their experiences with you all as well as our community. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Allen.
Good evening, everyone. Just like Mr. B said, this is an informational update of where we are in the implementation of our strategic plan, specifically with the first priority. And that first priority was rigorous and culturally relevant instruction, strengthening the implementation of our curriculum by deepening our leader and teacher expertise. So as you can see, over the summer, our instructional team, which consisted of Miss Rachel Duga, Miss Lori Pennesaw, the principal at Napoleonville Primary School, and our district master teacher, Miss Nicole Pipsayer, as well as myself, we created a vision for this priority of unpacking a unit and lesson internalization. So the vision that we created for unpacking a unit in the curriculum was through the use of unit unpacking, a clear understanding is formed of the process of implementing the intended curriculum into classroom instruction by establishing what students need to know and be able to do, determining what proficiency looks and sounds like, identifying what method will be used for measuring student proficiency. Then we created a vision of excellence for lesson internalization, how a teacher will internalize that lesson that needs to be taught. So Assumption Parish educators will study and annotate lessons to understand what students are expected to learn and make decisions about how to design and deliver the lesson content to meet all students' needs. So as you can see, that vision aligns with our overall vision, reaching every student every day. And then our expectations for each one of those pieces, unit unpacking and lesson internalization. Before the beginning of every unit, Assumption Parish educators will collaborate to unpack a unit and understand what's essential that students need to learn in that unit. And then before each lesson taught, Assumption Parish educators will internalize lessons to be adequately prepared to adapt to students' needs. So this vision and these expectations were sent to all principals for feedback. We received their feedback and we revised the vision and expectations, and this was from those revisions. We then brought this vision and expectations to our kindergarten through second grade ELA teachers. So the process for lesson internalization, anytime our teachers are internalizing their lessons, they ask themselves 4 questions to be able to meet the needs of their students. What are the most essential targets students must know and be able to do in this lesson as it relates to what's essential in the unit? So in their lesson, they're identifying what do students have to leave this lesson knowing and being able to do. That's their objective. How will I know that they've mastered the essential targets for today's lesson? So teachers are planning for checks for understanding or formal and informal assessments throughout the lesson so that they can check if the students in their class are mastering that objective. And then the last 2 questions that they ask themselves is to really meet the needs of our students. What might my students struggle with in this lesson? Who might struggle with this, and how will I meet the students' needs? So they're anticipating what my students will struggle with in this lesson so that they've prepared to meet the students' needs within the lesson and not wait till after the lesson is implemented. And then how might I extend the learning for those students who master the essential targets? So every time our teachers come together to collaborate, they're unpacking their unit and they're internalizing their lessons using this process. We've also implemented Accelerate. That's a process that came from the state. With the learning loss that our students have had due to going home with the pandemic and with recent hurricane, our principals worked really hard this summer to add 30 extra minutes to both the ELA block and math block for every teacher in their school, kindergarten through 8th grade. And we're teaching our teachers this process to respond to their students' needs. So they utilize this cycle in that 30-minute block before they teach the curricular lesson to meet the students' needs. And we'll have some testimonies in a minute of some of our teachers who have already gone through this process and the impact that it's had on the students. Here is some lesson plan internalization feedback. I sent out a Google form to our K-2 ELA teachers to gain their feedback on the process, and they were asked 3 questions. The first question or statement they were asked, and they had to use a Likert scale to rate it, was the unit unpacking and lesson internalization process has strengthened my instructional practices. So they either had to say, I strongly agree, I agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. The second question that was asked was, how has the unit unpacking and lesson internalization process strengthened your practices? And then what impact has the process had on student learning? So as you can see, this is the feedback that we received, and we're going to use that feedback to strengthen our process. So the last thing we've invited, just like Mr. B said, some K-2 ELA teachers from our district to come and share the impact that it's had on their students and on their practices. I do have one teacher that couldn't be here tonight, Miss Paula Terrio, who is a 2nd grade teacher at Napoleonville Primary School, and she submitted her reflection. So if you don't mind, I'll read what she sent me. After 26 years in Assumption Parish schools, it's safe to say that I've seen a multitude of lesson plan formats come and go. Often our lesson plans felt like a formality of checking off specific boxes, or on the flip side, rewriting scripted curriculum. Although I understood the need for it, the process didn't always make me a better teacher. Since we've implemented our EL curriculum, the shift to annotation as use of our instructional plans has been very beneficial. We were expected to learn every aspect of our curriculum in order to present our lessons with true fidelity to the program. These annotations helped with teacher content knowledge as well as the structure and pacing of our lessons, but I felt as though I was presenting a lesson rather than teaching a child. This year, in addition to our annotations, we have implemented the lesson internalization process with the opportunity to collaborate with teachers from across the district. The process has afforded us the opportunity to see how lessons build upon each other to ensure student success throughout the unit, as well as on their assessments. We identify areas that may be challenging for students and adjust instruction and tweak materials to ensure our struggling learners will be successful. In addition, we plan for ways to extend the lesson or provide accelerated learning opportunities for those students who master the content, ensuring the needs of individual students are met. By taking time to identify needs and make necessary adjustments prior to the lesson, we are being proactive rather than reactive in our instruction, which in turn encourages student engagement throughout the lesson and positively impacts student behavior. Teachers are more prepared and ready for just about anything that may come up in the lesson. For ELA lessons, we may address multiple standards within one lesson, 5 to 10. Through the lesson internalization process, we identify the essential standard, the primary focus for the unit, and trace it back through the daily lessons to gauge our students will have adequate practice to ensure mastery at the end of the unit. We identify opportunities for additional practice and adjust accordingly. Our students are able to see the connection across lessons and understand how what we're doing today helps us later. They're able to focus on the big picture and identify the stepping stones that have helped them to reach their final goal. My students have been more motivated, engaged, and successful since implementation of the lesson internalization process. Nothing is perfect, and we must acknowledge the fact that it is extremely time-consuming to truly pick apart our curriculum. K-2 ELA teachers have an advantage in that we've been slowly implementing pieces of this process over the last 3 years. The opportunity to collaborate with teachers across the district has been extremely valuable. Many of us are the only teacher on site for that particular subject and grade level, so it's refreshing to discuss and plan with others. In my opinion, the lesson internalization process has made a significant impact on my teaching and my students' success. Of the many types of plans I've created in the past, this is by far the most beneficial.
Wow, good. Awesome.
So at this time, I'll call up Miss Heather Bond. She's a second grade teacher at Bayou Lewis Primary.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Ma'am, I just have a question. I didn't quite understand. You mentioned something about 30 minutes that would be squeezed into the block or something?
30 minutes are added to the front end of an ELA block, and 30 extra minutes are added to the front end of a math
It's
block.
not adding time to the school day? This is
No,
Okay.
it was found within the time of the
Okay,
school
and let
day.
me ask you this. Is that taking 30 minutes of instructional time?
No, sir. This is extra time to meet the needs of the students. It's in addition to their regular block.
Think of it as a half an hour for tutoring. Like if you have tutoring built in your schedule, instead of the end of the day, it's built in during the day. So that block of time is there for those teachers to accelerate those lessons.
So it doesn't take away
Time from-
instructional time?
No.
And
No,
it
sir.
doesn't add time to the school day?
No,
No.
sir.
And one more time, where does the time come from?
within the day,
Within,
within the 7 hours that daytime, that
So you
instructional
take some
time.
off for lunch maybe, or? I
No,
mean, you
it was,
gotta get the time from somewhere. I mean, you just can't
Yeah,
do
well-
like the
well-
government and create daylight savings time. I mean,
Well,
instead of it being a remediation time, we just called it a accelerate time. It's a different concept. It's front-loading the students so that they're successful to meet their needs before the curricular block. So it's actually the remediation time, but it's acceleration time. It was remediation that was already built into the schedule.
well, it's okay with the superintendent. I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
yeah, I mean, it's very, very valuable, and it gives our teachers an opportunity to work with our students so they could front load, so they could remove all the barriers. Anything that our students are going to struggle with, we can eliminate that when we work with them during Accelerate, so our students can engage in the actual lesson once it's time for our teachers to teach the actual skill, that the grade level content that the students will need to know. So it's a great program. It's a great opportunity for our students and for our teachers to really move, to get ahead. Because right now, what we're dealing with some learning loss. We all know that. We're dealing with learning loss. Our kids haven't been in school last year, since March. And then last year, we had to deal with a lot of COVID quarantines and things like that. Not only from the student standpoint, but some of our teachers had to go home. So we're trying our best right now to make sure that we close those achievement gaps so our students and teachers could be more successful.
And Ms. Heather's going to speak to that,
Oh,
to that accelerate block.
okay.
I just didn't understand.
Hi, hello.
Hi,
My
Ms.
name is
Heather.
Heather. I am a second grade teacher at Lewis Primary. And what we decided to do was the leadership team at our school decided to implement the Accelerate program before we kind of passed it out to all of our other teachers. That way we had the chance to fix any kind of bumps or quirks that might have needed to be tweaked a little bit to make it more efficient for other teachers to use it. So what it basically is instead of waiting until the students learn the curriculum EL part and then have to remediate because they didn't understand or they didn't catch on as well, we catch it before we actually present the EL lesson. So what I did was I gave like a little pre-test, and then I made a small group for the children who did not know what was coming up. So like you kind of have to plan ahead as far as like, well, I'll do my EL lesson on, short A sound next week. So this week, I'm gonna pre-test that, see who doesn't understand it, and then we're gonna front load that skill. That way, when it does come up next week, I have students who would normally not be able to participate in my lesson, who can participate right from the beginning. And that's exactly what I saw when I implemented my Accelerate lesson. I had a lesson coming up that I knew the students would struggle with, so I tested everybody in class, and I made groups into 2 sections of how kind of in common they would miss the skill. And then we just ran a small group lesson with the kids, and I exposed them to the skill before it came up the next couple of days. Okay. And like I just have this one student in my mind who not that he doesn't participate, it's just that he doesn't have the chance to because he's so far behind the other kids. He actually was raising his hand and was engaged and was answering questions saying, oh, I remember you said this, and I know the rule now, and he was able to get ahead of what was coming. So I think if we use that Accelerate time instead of remediation, like we were saying, get ahead of the actual, I don't want to say problem, but gap, I guess, essentially, I think it would be better than trying to catch them up like, okay, guys, come on, after. So it worked out pretty well. And then we also are trying to see how math is going to work too with our leadership team before we decide to say, okay, everybody needs to implement it in their classroom.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Go ahead, you
I
good.
think that from my experience, if you front load for a kid, it's not a surprise attack. I think that the kid
Right,
will get better.
exactly.
I had the opportunity
Yes.
to deal like that. And, they're not surprised, so they want to enjoy.
Right, and they could participate. They're not lost essentially, sitting there in their desk. I know they're paying attention. I know they're listening now because they've had the opportunity to see it, maybe three kids at a time with me instead of just sitting in a whole class while they're playing in their desk or, yeah. So I think it was very beneficial in my room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have more teachers, so I want to make sure that we hear from
I
everyone.
was actually in her classroom when she was implementing that Accelerate lesson, and she did a phenomenal job. Students learned the TH sound by the end of that 30-minute lesson.
Oh, cool.
Next, I'm going to call up Ms. Jenna Lejeune. She's a kindergarten teacher at Belrose Primary, and Ms. Lola Houston. She's a kindergarten teacher at Labadyville Primary.
Hello.
How you doing, girl?
Kind of wrote ours down.
Oh, yeah.
The unit unpacking and lesson internalization process has allowed us to dig deep into the curriculum in order to better plan for our lessons. It allows us to plan for areas where our students may struggle and areas where we can enhance our students' learning. It also helps us to focus on the skills our students will need the most in order to succeed. This process also allows us to have the opportunity to collaborate with others across the district with the same focus. This collaboration allows us to plan on a deeper level, to share student successes, and to modify lessons to better fit our students' needs. It has impacted student learning tremendously because we are able to address areas where students may struggle in advance in order to better prepare for student success.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
And then last but not least, we have Ms. Jill Daigle. She's a first grade teacher from Pierpont Elementary.
Evening.
Nadia.
I'm going to reiterate a lot of what was already said. For me, the unpacking and lesson internalization process assisted me in focusing my instruction on the standards that were essential to each unit as a whole and to each individual lesson. The annotations that were required within the lesson internalization pushed me to dig deeper into the lessons I teach, since I had to purposefully think about the struggles of my students and the supports that I would provide. I also really appreciated the opportunity to collaborate with my grade level team and problem solve any issues within the curriculum that needed to be addressed, especially since that's something that's not being able to be done very often. As they said earlier, since we're one person usually per grade level at the school.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just to close out, the work that our teachers are doing right now, that's the best work that's out there.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and what I'm getting back from Ms. Brittany, even tonight, our teachers are doing the right work. And you could put our teachers up against anybody in the state. From listening to what I heard tonight, not a whole lot of people are doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I credit our teachers for doing a phenomenal job and stay the course. We're not adding anything new. We're going to stay right here and we're just going to perfect what we're doing. And then next year, we're just going to extend that to other grade levels and other subjects.
Right.
So that the right work is happening. We just need to get better at it. So thank you, teachers, for taking your time. Thank you for having the courage to come up here and share your stories. So thank you all. Thank you to the principals, and thank you to Mrs. Brittany Allen, too. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very good. It appears as if you put a lot of work in there. So right now, y'all just focusing on ELA, right? Okay, good. And
it's K2.
Oh, okay, K2, right. So the one thing I heard, the common theme was that you're sharing your findings with other schools throughout the district. That's very important. That's very important. So if you catch something that's working or something that's not working, then you share it with your other groups within the district. Very well. Thank you all very much. That's good work. Thank you, Mr. B. Ms. Brittany, thank you all very much. Next, under budget, receive update on October 1, 2021 MFP student account.
Just would like to let the board know, this is all predictions right now. The State Department has not officially given us our October 1 count, but I thought it was very important that we inform the board and inform the public of where we are right now, because traditionally, we get our October 1 count in October. So at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Lisa to kind of explain where we are now.
Good evening,
All right,
board,
Lisa, how you
board
doing?
members. Okay, you all should find in your packet a page with the MFP count. And as usual, I usually put a few years in there so y'all can kind of contrast or compare and contrast year to year what's happening. As you know, in our district, our MFP numbers seem to be dwindling each year. This has been going on for many, many years in our district. And in digging in deeper in the data, what appears to be happening is just that people are not staying here and having children, I think mostly, is what we determined. People are moving out of the district, and the numbers leaving the district at the upper end of our school were larger than the number coming in at the bottom. So slowly our numbers are shrinking. Now, student loss can be for many reasons, and you'll see October 1st of 2021, right now our numbers are just about at 2,800, which is a significant amount of drop from last October. I say significant, it's over 160 students. We've had a lot go on in the last year and a half, and I think that this past year probably has had a lot to do with it, with the amount of movement people are doing. I looked at I went ahead and took the student list of kids who have exited the district since August this year through to October now. And just to look at where are they going. We track, when students leave, we track if they're leaving the district, if they're going to be somewhere in the state. We track if they're going to homeschool, virtual school kind of situation. We track if they're going to a private school. We also have some kids who end up being a no-show. We don't know where they went. They just never showed up, and we don't have any contact with them, be able to find out what happened to them. Normally, about 50% of our loss is over, or 50% of the loss that we have when we start the new school year is usually kids moving out to other districts in the state. And that's the same case this year. We might have more kids moving out, but the percentage is about the same. It's a little over 50% of our kids move to other districts. So we're assuming families are moving, and that's the case. However, I guess it could be for a few other reasons. We had about 9% of our kids left this year so far to go to private schools. Last year we had, at this time, we had about 7% leave. So it's pretty identical, pretty close to identical. Virtual schooling. This year we had about 15% of our kids left at the beginning of the school year to go to virtual schooling. Okay, last year we ran a virtual school here, but we had kids who left and went to another virtual school, and that was about 14% last year. So it was about the same. It's running about the same. And I just looked, Mr. B came and asked me, he said, Lisa, look to see how many kids we had in virtual at the end of last year in our virtual program. We had about 350 into the year in virtual. This year we began without a virtual. We only have maybe 20 kids in it. We have some very special cases in virtual, maybe 20 kids, 25 kids. That's about right, Mr. Damien. Okay, and I looked to see out of those kids, those 350 kids, how many left to go to another virtual school somewhere, and there were 37 kids out of the 350. So it's close to 10% of that bunch left. So just to kind of give you an idea what's going on with the numbers, that's kind of where we stand.
Okay.
Have any questions?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Let's go under paragraph B, receive information on adopting a resolution to increase the hourly rates of special counsel to those approved by the Attorney General.
Yes, everyone should have a copy. We received some information from Hammond and Sills, and they're asking for us to increase our rate to $225 an hour with them, which is the Attorney General rate. We have not received an increase from our attorneys since 2000, I want to say 2007.
Yeah.
Which our rate right now is $150 per hour. So what they're asking now is for us to have it at 225, which is the maximum rate from the Attorney General, saying that these are what council should receive. So you have that information right now, and if there's any questions or if you need me to do anything different there, just let me know and I will get in touch with our attorneys. And then obviously it'll be back on the agenda for next week, next meeting for a vote or for a discussion.
Okay, thank you, sir, I appreciate it. Next, receive information on contract with Lena, L-E-N-A, Grow.
Can I ask you a question about the
Yes, sir,
special-
yeah.
I'm new, I don't understand. How many special counsels do we have?
Well, we have one firm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hammond and Seals.
Hammond and Seals,
Yeah.
that's this thing right here.
We have one
Yeah,
firm.
There's just one firm.
Oh, okay, and the rate was,
Currently.
It was $150
And we
per
were-
hour, and now they're requesting $225 per hour, which is the rate that the Attorney General sets.
okay, and just, because I don't really know anything, how many hours, we talking about hours a week, hours a day?
It varies, it all depends on how often we call them. So if we have a certain situation that we're experiencing on our campuses or in our district, we would give them a call and they would charge us, they would bill us based on how many hours we actually use them. They are on retainer, so whenever we need them, we will call them and then they will bill us for those services. They're not on staff where they're constantly making, $225 an hour for 7 hours a day.
Right.
Only when we need them.
Basically, a special counsel's a lawyer.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Next, receive information on contract with Lena Grow.
Ms. Rachel?
Good evening.
How you doing?
I feel like every time I come before the board, I'm always excited about something, but this time I'm really, really excited.
I am
This
too.
is a very innovative program that just came into existence in 2017. It is based on the concept that children learn best through conversational terms. That is what we use to evaluate our early childhood teachers through the class observation tool, and basically is the interactions between the adult and the child throughout the day that marks whether the teacher is successful in getting the child ready for kindergarten. This company created a technology device that the child would wear, and it will track how many times the teacher and the child are interacting with each other and print reports based on that interaction. So the teacher may think that she's posing a question to the class and all the kids are participating, but that tracking device on that child is going to determine whether that child really participated in the answer or not. Their research says that if you can get conversational turns up to 40 opportunities an hour, you can increase a child's IQ. The first 2,000 days of a child's life is the most important days, and that's about how many days a child will live before they're in kindergarten. So it is the most crucial time for brain development, and if we can develop the brain properly, we can increase the IQ. So if we can increase the opportunities for them to interact, then we can essentially increase their IQ. This company has more than one program. They also have a program to help parents track how many interactions they have at home. But our thought was that we would start with the teachers at school and get the teachers well-versed in it so that when we do it and offer it to parents, the teacher can be a support because they've already participated in it. This contract will buy the vests, buy the devices, buy all of the coaching material. So in the future, to be able to follow through with it, all we have to pay is $250 per teacher to use the technology to print the reports. So you have the information in front of you. I gave you a little packet. This is grant funds, so there's no cost to the general fund for this. I actually had to interview with the company, and because I feel like I represented us well, they gave us a $10,000 launch grant to couple with the money from Ready Start to fully pay for the initiative.
Cool, all right.
One more thing. We will be the first district in the state of Louisiana to participate. Right now, there are 3 districts who are participating in the parental program, but no one has done it with the coaching through the school with the teachers.
Good, excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rachel.
All right. Next, paragraph D, receive information on contract with LaSard. LASARD.
So this is the same company that we partnered with last year. It's through LSU. I don't know if the contract that you have has all the particulars, but the details of the scope of work is that we will have 5 monthly team meetings, 2 two-hour professional developments for up to 60 participants. This is what's the important piece, 19 individualized coaching sessions. So any child that is struggling to be successful in a particular classroom, we can contract for the coach from LaSalle to come and give specific interventions for that child in that classroom. It was extremely successful last year. They know what they're doing. They were able to help us really quickly. And then 90 logins for their website and their resources. So you'll notice that the 60 participants is more than what we have in early childhood, and obviously the 90 logins is more than what we have in early childhood. So we're going to offer these extra opportunities to our special ed teachers in the upper grades, not just in early childhood.
Okay. All right. Good.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you
Rachel.
much. Next, under paragraph E, authorize the superintendent to accept the proposal for agency assistance with early childhood community access / landscape analysis and early childhood business model and strategic planning. Need a motion? Need a motion? Got a motion by Ms. Uso, second by Mr. Robinson. Questions or comment? What's this one here is about, Mr. B?
Go ahead, yes, ma'am.
All right.
So another grant opportunity that I was able to secure for Assumption Parish is the Community Supply Building Access Grant. So this is to increase childcare across our parish. Right now, we have 150 children who qualify for LA4 for our 4-year-olds. With that being said, that means that there's 150 kids out there that are, one, that when they're 4, they'll qualify for LA4. There's 150 2-year-olds, there's 150 infants, and there's 150 3-year-olds. We don't have opportunities for these kids to be served through an educational experience. Right now, we serve 102 3-year-olds, 100, all of our 4-year-olds, but in our 2 daycares, they only serve 10 CCAP kids. So there's a huge missed opportunity for children in our parish to be provided these experiences. This company, I was really intrigued by them, and so I'm glad that they entered a proposal for us. They will come and look at our landscape, see where we have, they call it childcare deserts, where nothing is offered, and give us some proposals of ways to try to increase the childcare. Once they give us the plan, then it's our job to go forth and figure out how to get it done.
Thank you, Ms. Rachel.
Any
Mr.
other
President, go ahead, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, sir. No, go ahead, go ahead. No.
I'm gonna wait till you finish.
No, I was just about to call for a vote.
Yeah, go ahead.
sir.
I'm gonna wait
All
till
right.
the next one.
And
So,
one more thing.
yeah, please, go ahead.
These people came in significantly under budget, what we had budgeted for it, so that's kind of exciting too.
Okay.
Ma'am, I just want to ask you one, did I understand you say 40 interactions between the teacher and the student?
Yes, sir.
Is that in a day?
In an hour.
With every student?
You and I just had 5.
Oh, it's just one person in the?
It's back, every time we do a back and forth,
I
it's an
understand. How many
interaction.
people in the class?
There are 2 adults,
No, how many students?
up to 20.
So you have 20 students, you got to ask 40 interactions with each student
Yes,
in an hour?
yes.
Good luck with that. Okay.
You can be with a group of 5 kids and they can all be given an answer. And so that's all kids getting one turn.
Oh,
All right.
And our elementary teachers, they do a phenomenal job, trust me. They're constantly interacting, Mr. Duncan. They do a phenomenal job. You'll be surprised.
All right, yeah.
Every back and forth exchange counts as one interaction. So the more you can deepen the conversation, the better it goes. So you and I might be talking about your puppy dog, and Mr. Washington's like, I have a puppy dog too. Guess what? My puppy dog is blue. Every time he adds something to it, that counts as an interaction.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, no other questions or comment. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Next, Authorize the superintendent to accept the proposal to contract a workforce development specialist. Need a motion?
Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to table items F and G, and the reason why is because these bids went out and we did not receive a proposal.
Oh, okay.
And the Louisiana Department of Education has advised Ms. Rachel that we table this item because we don't know if we're going to actually use this particular bid in the future. It all depends on our strategic plan. So we want to table the items F and item G.
Okay, need a motion to table item F and G. Need a motion? Motion by Mr. Robinson, second by Mr. Washington. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next, paragraph H. Authorize the superintendent to accept a proposal to contract a coordinator to facilitate the responsibilities for successful implementation of Ready Start Network. Need a motion? Need a motion, guys. Motion by Ms. Meakin, second by Mr. Washington. Questions or comment? Go ahead.
So the Ready Start grant is a 2-year grant. The first year, they gave us the amount of money that they give everyone, but the second year, they gave us an additional amount of money, and they specifically said that they wanted us to hire someone to run the network. So our district doesn't hire extra staff members, so the easiest way to do that is through contracted services. So we put the RFP out, and this LLC submitted a proposal. So this is the proposal for that person to take care of everything that needs to be done for the Ready Start Network. When the grant funds end, the contract ends. So the contract will end at the end of June.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Ms. Rachel.
All right. Hearing no other questions or comment, those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next, under facilities and ground, authorize the superintendent to solicit request for proposal for a Pier Park Middle and Belrose Middle outside project. Need a motion? Motion by Ms. Uso, second by Mr. Duncan. I see we have Mr. Joseph here. You've just passed out a copy. Go ahead, Joseph. You got the floor.
So before Mr. Joseph speak, I just want to let the board know that, and our communities to know that the funding here was requested through our ESSER funds. We have some flexibility to create outside space. Part of COVID, the big thing is for kids to have more space to interact. So you're going to see not only at Pier Park, not only at Belrose, but throughout our entire district. So be prepared next week to have additional projects, Napoleonville Middle, Labradorville Schools, Bayou Lewis as well. So understand that more is coming as it relates to the outside projects. So I'm building outside projects throughout our entire district. Mr. Swaba?
Yes, and forgive me, I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to count on the microphone a little bit more than I normally do. You have before you a cost estimate for Pier Park Middle School recreational improvements as well as Belrose Middle School recreational improvements. And these estimates are identical because what we're proposing to do at those two schools is the same thing. We're going to pick a location in the backyard, which I have preliminary plans actually completed and ready to go. I just need to get those locations finalized with the school principals and the superintendent. Once that's done, we can then go out and actually obtain hard prices that you all will be able to make a decision about. But what we're looking to do is put an outdoor area that the kids can use for a playground, a concrete slab for basketball goals, as well as a covered pavilion with some tables and benches and so forth where they can go out and just sit and be able to interact and enjoy the outdoor space. And so that is the estimate you see before you. The court that we're proposing, we've been utilizing, the parish has actually been utilizing that size. You'll see 30 by 70 on there. That is not a high school regulation basketball court. That would be 84 by 50 and approximately twice the cost that you see there. If we get to those higher, your upper school levels where we see that's necessary, we can expand these courts. But this size seems to work well with smaller playgrounds. The parish utilizes them at their local parks and so forth. It's the right size for a 3-on-3 pickup game, that type of thing. And so that's kind of what we're aiming to do. And as you see, I have a lump sum budget item for benches and tables because it's going to vary. That may go up or down. That is a cost that I hate to say varies wildly based on what you choose. But we've just put down a budget allowance based on, we recently completed a park for the parish at an average cost of about $500 a bench. So that'll give you an idea. The two that you have here before you is a total cost estimate of $40,800 each, and that includes a 30 by 30 covered pavilion and, of course, the basketball court with the goals, the striping, and dress work.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comment? Hearing none, those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Any comments or announcements before we adjourn?
I got Mr. Buggage coming up to give us our COVID numbers, Mr. President, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Buggage?
Please do. Mr. Burgess, how you doing?
Again, good news, we are still in the single digits. We have 4 positive cases within the district, and again, that is students and staff, and 11 quarantine cases. So as of today, 4 positive cases, 11 quarantine cases, and that compared to our last board meeting, we had 8 positive cases and 25 quarantine cases. So we've cut the positives in half. We are again single digit, and really cut quarantines in half as well, a little bit less than half. So good news, we are still spiraling down, and you know, we just hope to keep moving in that direction.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Buggage.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Burgess.
I just don't understand. My daughter lives in St. Tammany Parish, and I don't quite, they did the same thing when they made the mask optional.
Sure.
If you remove the mask, but in St. Tammany Parish, if you remove the mask and somebody's exposed, then you have to quarantine. Is that's here too?
Right, if
See,
you are
if they had the
within,
mask, they didn't have to quarantine.
Yeah, there's some
Right.
very specific guidance that we received from the LDH, so it all depends on how many feet you are away from that
Yeah,
individual.
I know.
But that is-
If, I don't care, I'm perfectly comfortable with, making the mask optional. I just didn't understand, how bad it's gonna be when students have to stay home.
Yeah, and we've been, the guidelines that we've been following all year, matter of fact, for the last few years. So if you wear the mask, obviously, you have a greater opportunity to stay in school.
Yeah,
right?
no, I just
But
want
if
to
you
know-
don't, then obviously it goes back to that 6 feet rule, and you actually have to be quarantined. So I strongly encourage all parents, if the students could wear masks, let them wear a mask, but understand that is only because they can stay in school longer.
Yeah.
They have better opportunity to stay in school. But that is kind of like, we following the
Yeah,
guidelines on
it's just
that.
a kind of a two-edged sword.
Right.
I mean,
Yes,
Yeah, it
yes.
is.
and by continually tracking numbers, if we see numbers start to go up again, I'm sure masks, it may not be optional. We have
I mean,
them
I wasn't
right-
advocating for masks.
No, I understand.
I was just wondering if like in Mandeville, they had to start the quarantine if the guy sits next to you or something.
Sure.
You gotta stay home for 10 days or whatever.
Yes,
I
sir.
was just wondering if that the way it was for us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We're following LDH guidelines.
You still have to wear them on the bus, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, on the bus,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So they still have to bring masks with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Right. And we also have masks on the bus in case they forget, but we do ask parents to please help us out and send the kids with the mask to wear on the bus.
So how is transportation going now? I know we had some issues and problems with transportation. How's it going now?
I'm super excited, Mr. Budget, because he could speak to, and look, I don't want to say this, since Mr. Bucket is doing a phenomenal job. I really commend him for taking on the additional responsibility as it relates to handling all of our transportation concerns. So I really want to thank him for that. And he can explain, we just had a class, we have a class going on right now. So we're trying to make sure that we get subs and we get as many people as we possibly can on board, so we actually can make sure our routes are full. Mr. Bucket, you want to kind of explain that?
Yes. I will say the issues that we have had and are having with transportation, we can directly relate to lack of sub drivers and the lack of, in some occasions, we have to double up routes, and our goal is to get kids off campuses as early as possible, get kids home as early as possible, pick kids up on schedule, get them to school on time. So we are trying to create opportunities to bring in more drivers, to have sub-drivers available, that we can utilize on occasions when drivers are out. We see directly when we have a week where drivers are in and no one is out, and of course, legitimate reasons, and when drivers are out, things go smoothly. Principals aren't calling, parents aren't calling, and we love those days. We've had a lot of those days, and we're starting to see more and more of those days. But again, we are trying to create opportunities, get people certified, and we see us, I think we're moving in the right direction. So it's been a task, but
Could
that's
you
a part of what we
communicate
do.
to the board how many we have actually going through the program right now to be certified?
Yes, we actually have 9 individuals. I think when I last spoke to Mr. B, it was 7, but we have 2 more that started. So our goal is to get them in, have them available, so we can utilize so that things can continue to go smoothly. So it's getting there. We ask for your patience. We ask for parents' patience as well. But we are working hard to get things continuing to move in the right
The
direction.
attitude of the drivers, are they, because I know they've been having you say they've been having to drive 2 routes or whatever. I mean, what is the attitude of the drivers?
Well, I can't speak for the drivers, but I can say this. When I pick up the phone now to ask a driver to, can you help out in this area? Can you help out in this area? Yes, sir. Or I get a thumbs up, or I get, if they have questions, they call. But that type of communication is getting better. Now, drivers are helping each other out. They are helping their peers out, and it's getting better. I can't speak for drivers. I don't know what happens when they're not.
And Mr. Washington, it's not perfect.
It's not.
It's not perfect.
It's not. But we are working better as a team, and I find individuals more apt to help out. In fact, I had a driver today. Mr. Buggage, I'm done with my route. Do you need me anywhere else? I can go over to this school and help out if they're running behind. I'm hearing more things like that, driver-initiated conversations where they're just looking to jump in and help out. We didn't have that at the beginning of the year, and I'm having more and more of those conversations.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Good report. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Washington, second by Ms. Zuso. All